Hi everyone, Kristina here. Welcome to day 5 of the holiday card series. So today's video actually started out as a completely different card, and it was taking too long and it was just going on and on forever, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna stop making this card. I don't have time. So I'm gonna go and do a different design and simplify it. But my problem came when I decided to, okay, I'm not gonna make one card, I'm gonna make 15. Like what? Really? Really now? Such simple designs for the cards though that I did all 15 in just a couple hours. So all in all, I feel pretty good about it. So let's get into it. The idea for making 15 of the same card design came when I saw these dip-dyed cards and envelopes from Concord at Night. It actually comes with 20 cards and envelopes, but I didn't want to create the yellow one, the yellow version of these. So I'm going to save those for a different day. And I'm going to be using kind of this coral shade, the teal, and also the navy blue. And the thing that's cool about these is that the envelopes match. So you can kind of mix and match them as you start pairing up your cards with your envelopes. And these cards are pre-scored, they're ready to go, and it actually cuts down on a lot of time. I'm going to use two different stamp sets from Concord at Night. I'm using Snow Flurry and Very Merry Sentiments. I'm going to take the really large snowflake and I'm going to center it on the front of the card. And I want this pretty centered top to bottom and side to side on the front panel of the card. And I'm going to be stamping this snowflake on every single card in the same spot. So by using a MISTI stamp positioning tool for this, it's going to make it really, really easy to just swap out the different card bases and do a bunch of stamping. I'm going to stamp each snowflake in Versamark ink, and then I'm going to be doing some heat embossing over the top. So I'm pressing that stamp down. It's a really large snowflake, so I'm making sure I walk my fingers over every single area. I'll lift it off, and then I'm going to take some sterling embossing powder. This is a silver embossing powder from Brutus Monroe, and something that makes this really helpful as far as making multiples of the same card is to have your embossing powder in a container. If you don't have a container like this, or you don't store them like this all the time, you could just use a kitchen bowl, a cereal bowl or anything like that with a spoon from your kitchen. That would work just as well, and then you can just funnel all of that embossing powder back into the jar when you're done. So I used my heat tool to heat set this up, heat set all the snowflakes, and the first couple I had to wait a little bit longer for the embossing powder to melt, but by the time I got to that very last card, it worked really well. I only had to barely pass over the snowflake and it would melt it. That's because the heat tool was fully heated up and it didn't take very long for it to melt all that embossing powder. So I sped up all of the stamping process, but I did take note that it took me about 25 minutes to stamp all of the snowflakes and heat emboss them. So not particularly bad for 15 cards. I think that was a pretty good time frame. So after I had all the snowflakes completely stamped and embossed, I then took one of the greetings from that other sentiment set, and I'm going to stamp this in a couple of different colors. The first color I'm using is Soft Navy from Simon Says Stamp, and that's why that stamp was already blue, because I'd stamped it once already. But I'm placing it in the top corner of this piece of white cardstock. This cardstock is cut to a card front size. I just have a stack of this Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock right next to my work area. So that's why it's this particular size. But after I stamped it once, I slid that paper up, and now I'm going to stamp that greeting again, and it's going to just fill in that bottom corner. When I moved the paper up, I just made sure to keep the bottom edge of my paper a little bit below that 3-inch mark, because that's where I noticed that the bottom of the stamp was. So then I rotated my paper, and I'm going to stamp it a third time, making sure I ink up that stamp really well, and then press down over each one of these words. And then I'm going to slide that paper up one more time, making sure I stop a little below the 3 as well. And then I'll stamp it a fourth time. So this is a way to maximize the stamping you're doing with the greeting, especially if you're going to be cutting it out like I'm doing today. This makes it so I stamp all 4 on one piece of paper, and it'll make it really easy to keep things organized. So I cleaned off this stamp really, really well, and I ended up using some Ultra Stamp Cleaner from Simon Says Stamp. And I've smushed that all over the stamp, and then I'll just use a baby wipe to wipe it off. And I actually cleaned this stamp twice just to make sure that all of that extra color was completely off the stamp, so that when I move on to the next color, which is Flamingo from W+9, it's not going to change any of that ink color. It's going to be purely the Flamingo ink color. So I did the same exact process with this other color. I stamped the greeting stamp 4 times on this one sheet of white cardstock, and I just moved it up and rotated it until I had it stamped in all 4 corners. So when it comes to cutting all of these out, I knew this would probably be the most time-consuming part of this process. So this is what I found was the fastest for me. I used a craft knife to make really simple straight cuts in between the words. And I just held that paper with my left hand and then cut with my right. Then I switched to scissors and I cut off the one edge that was, the free edge. And then I rotated it around and I cut off the other end. And as I cut out each word, I put the words into piles so that they would stay organized. And this is going to really help me when it comes to adhering them onto all of 15 cards. So I've got them all in all those separate piles. And this part actually went fairly quickly. I was surprised once I got into it. It went really fast. So in order to prep all of these for the cards, I've cut some foam tape in half just so that it's more narrow. And then just like I've been doing this entire process, which is doing all the steps in batches, I'm cutting all of the foam pieces for each word in groups. So I've cut 15 pieces that will all fit behind the word have. And then I've cut them all for the other words, and then I'm finishing up with these longer strips of foam for the word Christmas. And I'm keeping them all in their piles of the separate words. And now I'm going to do a little bit of prepping so I can adhere these super fast to all these card fronts. So the snowflake is in the center of the card, so I've just X'd out the center of this piece of white cardstock. This is the same size as my card. And I'm going to place all of these words onto this area, and this is going to give me a chance to kind of get the spacing all figured out before I actually move on to a card. So after I had these all on my kind of mock practice sheet, I went around that area with a pencil, and this is just going to give me an idea of the shape of my whole greeting area. And I'm just going around keeping a little bit of space around the outside edge. This doesn't have to be precise. I just wanted an idea of where the words would be. I removed those foam adhesive pieces, and then I took an X-Acto knife and I cut out that center area. This is going to make it super easy to place this template on top of my card front and adhere all of these words. So I'm going to take my card front and I'm going to place my guide right over the top. And you're going to be able to see how quickly this goes together. I don't have to spend a lot of time being fussy and making sure everything's centered because I already did that just once and I don't have to do it ever again. So if you're doing multiple cards like this, consider giving yourself a guide. If you want to have a particular die cut or an image always in the same spot on your card, you might want to create a guide like this so that it will isolate the area where you want that image to be, and then you can just place it right over the top. I found this extremely helpful while I was kind of assembling each one of these cards. It went by super quickly. The other thing I want to mention to you guys is that I listened to an audiobook while I was creating all these cards. So while it took me 2 hours to create all 15 cards, the time just flew by and it went super, super fast. And I'm excited to have all of these cards ready to go so that when I start sending my cards out, probably at the end of November, beginning of December, I'll have enough to cross off all those names on my list. So here are the other 2 color combinations. I just decided to use the same colors that are included on the dip die card fronts. So here's this last one. I'm going to use my bone folder just to crease that fold. And then you're going to get a glimpse of all 15 cards all together. They look really cool once you see them all done like this. It really makes you feel like you've accomplished something, even though it was just one design and you repeated it over and over. So I'm super happy with all 15 of those cards. I love the color combination. It's Christmassy, yet really not. It's a little bit non-traditional. I really love how they turned out. So before you guys go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell just so you never miss one of my holiday card videos again. And also give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. That lets me know you want to see more videos like this, and I really appreciate it. On screen, I've got 2 more videos for you to check out. These are the day 5 videos for 2017 and 2016. And if you're interested in seeing what other things I did for day 5 in previous years, I've got those listed down below in the video description. You just click through, take a little walk down memory lane. Thanks so much for watching today. I will catch you guys on Wednesday for day 6.